All right. So again, welcome to our FLEX MBA current student panel. I have a couple questions here for our current FLEX MBA students. And again, for those that are here live, feel free to type any questions into the chat box. So we have some prospective students here. We'll have a bunch of prospective students that'll be watching this in the near future. I'm curious from the three of you, when you were looking at kind of part-time online MBA programs, ultimately, why did you kind of decide on Lehigh versus a lot of different options that are out there in the marketplace currently? Connor, I'll just call on you again if that's okay to get started.
Yeah, no problem. So I only looked at a few schools, but the biggest things I would say, just in differing from other universities I looked at, the one of the bigger ones was asynchronous for synchronous courses. So I like the fact that all the classes were live, or you could even be in person if you wanted. So I think having that flexibility was really important. The asynchronous factor for that some other programs do is nice, but I don't think you get the opportunity to learn as much, and then obviously you don't develop the relationships with the students like we've been able to do here. So that was probably one of the biggest things. And then of course, there's name recognition. I mean, there's Lehigh's a great university, so I kind of wanted to add that to the resume as compared to some of the other schools I looked at. So those are probably the main two. And I also liked that you could concentrate so that I could get a finance concentration. So that was probably the other main contributing factor.
Great. Dan, how about you? Any similarities or differences?
I mean, mostly similarities. Like Connor said, the synchronous nature of the majority of classes, I think, was a big plus. I'm not sure I'd have been able to kind of get through a totally asynchronous curriculum. I don't know if I'd have the self-discipline to do that. So, that is a big plus. But in addition to that, like Connor said, the relationships that you build. I learned really well from class discussion, from doing like in-class group work as well. So like that's been a big plus for me personally. And then like additionally, I think it translates a little bit more to the workplace when you do different projects and different, group experiences like that. Since day to day, I'm usually working with other folks from other teams with other backgrounds too. So that's very helpful too. And then my wife, who's also in the program, Alana, she, she obviously wanted to, go back to school as well and work on her MBA. And so her and we both aligned on Lehigh for separate reasons. She's really more deep into marketing, and she was really excited about some of the different electives and courses that were offered. And for me personally, I was more excited about, like I said, that synchronous nature. Again, the name recognition. It's a really great school, especially. I'm in the New York area. It's a really well-known school in the New York area. So our needs and wants kind of align there. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think I like to think that we both chose this program for the right reasons, and I think we're really, really satisfied with that choice, a few years on.
Great. Dennis, how about you?
Yeah, it's it for me. There were three major reasons why I chose Lehigh's Flex MBA program. I'd say the first, it's similar to Connor and Dan's sentiment, right? I didn't like the modular format that some of these other MBA programs have in the sense that, you're kind of just clicking through content. So being able to actually work through a class and either go on campus or watch it live on Zoom, or if you're traveling for business, being able to watch it back, I really enjoyed the thought of that flexibility. The second piece was around trying to get to a school that looked a little bit different than my undergrad. So, as I mentioned, I'm in life sciences, so there's a heavy scientific focus. I could have easily probably pursued an MBA in that vein, but I like being around people that have different backgrounds. Obviously, Lehigh's got a great engineering focus, so we certainly see a lot of that. We see a lot of life sciences as well as finance. So, in my mind, it's really unique to have a program that's a little bit different. You have different backgrounds, and I think that lends itself to better discussions in class. And then the last piece for me was how it stacked up cost wise. So my employer is kind of a newer commercial organization, so we don't have the same benefits as kind of some larger pharmaceutical companies. So as someone who's self-funding, my MBA, I really like the fact that number one, it seemed pretty cost effective, but also you can go at your pace, right? So I think there's a lot of advantages with Lehigh, but for me, those were the major three factors.
Yeah, and you actually led me right to my next question. So, Dennis, I'm going to ask you maybe to lead this one off. So, when you talk about pacing a little bit, talk to us a little bit about like what your schedule looks like. Like, are you taking one course at a time, two course at a time? Like, what does it look like over the duration of the program to this point?
Yeah, I think it'll depend on the person, and it depends on where you're at in the phases of your life. So I'd say when I started at this program, I'd just gotten married, and we didn't yet start talking about a family. So in my mind, Kevin, it was like, all right, let me try to front load this and get as much as I can done early, and then on the back end, hey, you know what? Let's take our time a little bit. So I'd say it'll depend on where you're at in life and what you want to take on. But the good news is, I mean, if you kind of break it in your mind in semester blocks and increments, and you look at kind of your spring and your summer and your fall, I think you have a great opportunity to align, what you're doing at work, what you're doing on the family front, and then what you want to take on with your MBA. So I'd say for me, more recently, I've kind of been doing one course a semester, and it's been really good because rather than kind of trying to buzz through it, it gives you more time to kind of dive deep into the content and not necessarily operate at more of a surface level if you're taking on too much than that you can handle. So for me, that's what I found great about this experience, Kevin.
Dan, how about you? Any comments on that?
Yeah, for me, it's really dependent on the semester. So like Dennis, we didn't get married right before. We actually got married during the program. So we got married during our second semester, and we're buying a house at the same time. So we just did one class that semester. We were both, I think we were all in finance. That for that, I think Connor, you and I were in the same group for that finance class too. Um, so like that was a great example of like really needing to take one, and like the flexibility really helped there too. But then the last couple semesters I've enjoyed being able to take two at a time. I've liked having or being able to like kind of fill in some of those empty gaps of okay, no wedding to have to plan, or no, house stuff to deal with, or none of that. So I really like having more things to do, and classwork has helps kind of fill that void, but also the flexibility to take or not take summer classes has also been great. So I've enjoyed doing some summer classes and some electives there too, but also definitely excited, when I have a little bit of a break there too, and haven't felt like there's been any kind of impact on completion or pacing of the program too. So yeah, the flexibility has just been really great.
Connor, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, like Dennis and Dan said, it's gonna be very person dependent. So it depends on what how you're scheduling and how fast or how slow you want to go. For me, it was mainly I mainly focused on the way my employer reimbursed. So I
Mhm.
do get some tuition reimbursement. There has been just the way certain years have aligned. I've had to take some out of pocket, but my main goal is to kind of maximize that. So I've been doing about two classes a semester with like alternating summers. So that put me at right around 4 years. So I just coordinated a lot with Marissa, who's the academic coordinator. And we just kind of set it up well so it worked out timing wise. And that's kind of the best way for me trying to maximize that. And it's worked out well. Like I said, the alternating summers, I'll hop on the theme there. I also got married not too long ago. So the one summer that was happening, I did not take a class, so that kind of worked out well. But yeah, the biggest thing is just kind of timing and funding. So that's kind of how I decided to pace it.
Yeah, and that's a solid point. We hear that from a lot of students that a lot of students take usually 3.5 years tends to be a pretty sweet spot because they can access 4 years, 4 fiscal years of tuition reimbursement. So a lot of students are kind of trying to balance that out when they're building their schedule. So I'm glad you had mentioned that. I have a couple other questions related to kind of the classroom experience, because I think you all touched on that. Can you talk a little bit about like what it feels like to be synchronous? And I know like Dan, you're obviously pretty far outside of the region, but are any of you actually physically coming into the classroom? And if not, like what does it feel as an online learner? Like how are you engaging in the actual classroom? And feel free, whoever wants to take that first.
Yeah, I mean, like Kevin said, being in North Jersey, I think we're about hour 40 from Bethlehem, so I haven't been to class there. My wife Alana actually has an aunt in Allentown, so we go every summer and we'll go visit campus and walk around campus and like wander into the buildings and see where class would be. But we just haven't had the chance to go. I think it's something we'd want to do at some point still, and obviously we want to make the trip for graduation ceremonies next year. But despite all that, I really haven't felt like I've missed out by not being in the region and not being in class. I think for the most part, classes do skew more towards folks being online. So that kind of, that's been, pretty seamless experience. We've had more than enough ample opportunities to participate in class, whether, when we do breakout assignments, whether we're doing kind of online only or online and class mixed folks. Haven't really noticed a difference, to be honest,
Mm.
which I think is a good thing. Haven't noticed that difference of not being in class. So, um, one day, like for the novelty of it, I think it'd be fun to be able to go to class. But other than that, I haven't felt like I've missed out by not being in class.
Connor, are you mainly remote? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so I'm about an hour-ish from campus. I'm like the greater Philadelphia area.
Okay.
Um, I think if memory serves, I think Dennis is around my area as well.
Yep.
But it's not like too far of a drive, obviously, but just timing wise, if you get out 5 classes at 6, you're kind of milking it. I've been up a few times here and there, and that's kind of what I like about the flexibility is you have the option to do either or. But for the most part, I've been online.
Mhm.
Um, and like Dan said, I think it's pretty. Sometimes they skew more online, sometimes in person. It's been a fairly even split, and I think it creates a good dynamic between students interacting in class, students interacting online. You can make like groups of just people in person or online or a mix, and you just get different perspectives. And I would say most, if not all, have been pretty cognizant about trying to incorporate all the online students. Every once in a blue moon, you kind of got to remind them, it's like we're still here, but very rare. So it's been a really good experience, and you get a lot of different perspectives. So it's been good. But yeah, mainly online. I have gone up a couple times for the compelling speakers series.
Oh,
So
good.
there's been some cool speakers up at school. So I've come up for that. So that's been pretty cool. But
Who did you come up and see? If you don't mind me asking.
It was Theresa May was one of them, and then the former Prime Minister, and then Dave McCormick was there recently.
Okay,
So
good.
those are both
That's
pretty
great. Yeah, I
cool.
know Pete Buttigieg was there as well too, and Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, I believe, was here in the
Mm-hmm.
last year as well too. So yeah, and that's great as a part-time and online student. That's great for me to hear that you're taking advantage of those things when they're available. Dennis, anything to add with that? If because you're also in the greater Philly area.
Yeah, I'd say it's been really nice because I've done a little bit of a mix of both in that I'd say for most of the core classes I've done them virtually.
Hmm.
And I'm a remote worker just my day job, right? So for me, it's like this is just how we operate. My customers over in Ireland, and so like I get a lot get a lot of use out of Teams and Zoom. So I don't see any difference between how I operate at work and how Lehigh operates, right? The technology is great, and yeah, I just view it as like that's how we natively work now. And
Hmm.
then as it relates to getting on campus, I've been up there for all of my kind of like 1 credit 2 day courses. And that's been
Hmm.
great just to kind of get up there on a Friday and Saturday and block out that time, get up there on campus, stop and get your coffee and lock in for the day. So I found that to be really great.
Yeah, and again, you're leading me into a question, so I'm going to come right back to you. So are you taking the venture series, kind of one credit Friday, Saturday classes?
Yes, absolutely.
So, for those that don't know, we do offer a number of elective credits. I personally think they're some of our best elective credits, Friday, Saturday. So it does require one day you take off of work for the Friday, but it's a one credit kind of 2 day immersive experience. Dennis, do you want to maybe touch on that a little bit more and talk to us about some of the classes and how those are run? Because I think for somebody within an hour or two of campus that maybe isn't concentrating and has some space with their electives, that can be kind of an interesting way to engage on campus while you're mostly remote for the rest of the program. So do you mind commenting on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure thing. I think it's the best that Lehigh has to offer. So for me, somebody who works for a publicly traded company, right? You come in and you don't see what's going on at the company formation. So Lehigh offers a really unique series that Kevin alluded to, the venture series. And if you take enough credits, you can even earn a concentration in corporate entrepreneurship. But what's really cool is, as Kevin mentioned, right? It's 2 days, it's immersive. I like the fact that you're taking off, from work on Friday because you kind of get to unplug your work brain and plug into a different thought process. But it's really cool because it's more around like cases and how um, you get information that's kind of blinded, and you try to make decisions as if you were in the chair. So by the end of the 2 day event, depending upon what topic you're taking, you kind of learn the outcome of what occurred. And I think it's one of the things that's really great. It's a great reminder in that, like, for business, right, there's often no one right answer. And when you sit there and you go through this series, it's a phenomenal reminder that there's oftentimes many ways to get to a great outcome. And I view that series specifically as a huge differentiator for Lehigh, and anyone that is assessing what they want to do for an MBA. I mean, I think Lehigh is a great pick because that series itself, with everything that's going on, all the ecosystem around technology at this time, all the venture capital that's going into some of these newer growth focused companies. I just feel like it's something that you don't necessarily learn in a typical, classroom setting, and to be able to hear that from people that have been in the room, been in the decision making chair, so to speak. It's phenomenal.
And were those, just to follow up on that quick, were any of those team taught then? Like I know sometimes there's a faculty member and then they'll actually bring somebody in from currently from industry to co-teach it.
For sure. I mean, we the first one I ever took, I almost fell out of my chair because they had the number three gentleman from Andreessen Horowitz, the number one venture capital firm in I want to say maybe the world, right? When you think about their prestige and everything they've done, but they had Scott Cooper, right, on a Saturday morning dialing in, and he's now I believe working in government right now. But he dials in. I mean, it's like you're right there in a room with maybe eight other people, and like, yeah, you better have a good question ready to go. I mean, you have like the top dogs in an industry zooming in, and then there's been countless examples of other either people that have dialed in from private equity or co-adjunct faculty that are really talented. So it's just been great.
Good. Dan or Connor, any memorable courses so far, or ones that really had an impact on you?
I think so far, some of the finance electives. I took one last semester. It was corporate financial policy, I think is the name. But
Okay.
that was a pretty fun one. It focused a lot on some of the more case type studies that I'm interested in, M&A, IPO, stuff of that nature. We got to actually go through where we got to pick out a company and then we basically modeled it out and got to evaluate it ourselves and do like a buy share presentation on what our recommendation was on the stock and the value of the company. So that was pretty cool, and like what the IPO process is and getting a prospectus and how to analyze, a company going public. So some of those finance concentrations really stood out to me. Those are probably the coolest for me.
Great. Dan, anything to add?
I think my goal coming into this was really to just expand knowledge generally and not be pigeonholed into like analytics as a discipline, and really like understand all the other components to a cog and not just my own. So, overall, I think that the different classes, even some as mundane sounding as accounting, have like actually enabled me to have different conversations at work or outside of work with others that I wouldn't have been confident in otherwise. Like the HR management class, managing people, I think is it's called, but
Yeah.
it enabled, I was at our work offsite a couple months ago, and there was, discussion about like how you actually promote people or like how you might actually handle different kind of situations that are very gray. And I think that a lot of what we learned in that managing people class like were different cases that we kind of walked through and were very applicable there too. So that to me is just a great real world example of how I was able to apply a class that I never would have thought, I would have been able to speak on, an HR topic coming into this program. Um, but that really helped enable like me to speak kind of confidently and just kind of discuss those cases. And thankfully ended up having our head of HR kind of agree with what I was saying too. So I'm like, okay, that's validating really what I learned, in class and taking it to the real world with situations where like other professionals like would agree.
Great. Obviously you guys touched on it earlier, right? Similar points in your lives. One of the things that we're very proud of is kind of the quality of the student in the program. We actually have one of the highest academic profiles and work experience profiles when you look at online MBA students by US News and World Report. Can anybody talk a little bit about like the quality of the students in the program? I know that's a little bit of an obscure question, but what I'm kind of leading to is like level of work experience people have versus people coming out of school. Any comment about like your peers in the class as well as class sizes?
I think class size, just to start, some classes in general, like in undergrad especially, like could feel large and overwhelming. I have not felt that way once here. The class sizes have been closer to maybe high school size, which for me is such a positive. It allows more room for engagement, participation, kind of get to know some of the folks in your cohort and in some of your classes, which like I said earlier, I've been in a group with Connor already, and I've had, I think, most of my classes with Dennis too. So, having the smaller class sizes to me is such a positive. And then as far as the quality of the student goes, I know it's like very subjective. At the same time, I do think that you get a great mix of backgrounds in the program. I do think that what's the best part of it is that so many people, or not so many people, but the vast majority of folks are just going to be super engaged. You don't have to do in MBA nowadays. The way undergrad education has really become such a requirement in the job market, in ways that it may not have been 50 years ago. But you still don't have to do your MBA. So the fact that we're all volunteering, we're choosing to do our MBAs, it does show up in the student body with how people want to participate, how people are engaged with the material people want to do their classwork and come prepared to discuss their classwork. It's not like you just want to coast by like you might in undergrad. It's just not the case here, which I think brings out the best in everyone. And speaking for myself, brings out the best in me too.
Dennis or Connor, anything to add to that?
I don't have a ton. Dan hit most of the points solidly. I mean, I think the class sizes are just right. Um, I've had some like the concentrations go a little on the smaller side, which is good too because you get more interaction that way, and then maybe
Yeah.
as big as 20, 25 maybe. So it's a good size. You get a lot of interaction. You get to know people better that way. And it's a big diversity of backgrounds. I mean, a lot of different industries. I mean, every class I talk to somebody and it's a different company, different industry. It might not even be something I knew of before. So you get a lot of different perspectives, which I think is important because you get to learn from their eyes of their business profile. So it's a lot. You learn a lot. A lot of good different perspectives. And I would say most of everybody is like my age, if not older. So it's, people who've had at least 5 to 10 years of experience probably out in the world. It's not just people going from undergrad to graduate school. So that provides a lot too. People with real world experience to learn from.
Great. Dennis, anything to add?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is on the quality because I think Connor and Dan hit a lot of it, but I think by virtue of the format with this being a Flex MBA program, you, in my opinion, I think you get a little bit of a higher quality cohort than, and again, this could be controversial, but I'll say than like a full time program, and
Mhm.
I'll say that because a lot of the folks that we're in class with have like, I mean, these people are like credentialed out the wazoo. Like we're in classes with literally physicians that are doing like transplant surgery and organ donations. So if you think about that, right, these are most of the folks were in class with are in pretty highly compensated industries. So you're either looking to continue to go up, or maybe you're looking to pivot into something a little bit different. But I found the Flex MBA has been a good it's been good because most everybody's everybody's working, right? So there's in a sense you're kind of filtering out for folks who want to kind of take a breather or a pause for a year or two.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think you guys, all three of you touched on it at the beginning when I'd asked about like how you found Lehigh, and it always makes me happy when people say like I found it based on how I am as a learner, and the synchronous learning. I think to all of your points, like it pulls in people that know like okay, this isn't going to be the most flexible option, right? Like it's a lot more flexible to be able to watch videos and post to discussion boards, but I think that naturally it almost invites people that say like, look, I'm spending time, money, or my company's money on this. I want to get a lot out of it, and you all obviously touched on that. We get a lot of questions from prospective students about like not only the synchronous experience, but like what do deliverables look like? So, not to pick on accounting, I know accounting tends to give quizzes and tests, but like overall in your classes, are you seeing what's the most prevalent thing? Like group projects, team projects, papers, tests? Could you maybe just give kind of your overall uh, viewpoint on kind of where the majority of those assessments are happening? Anybody can jump in on that.
I'll start. Uh, for me, boils down to two different things. So just the general MBA classes, I say it's very heavily leaned towards group projects. So instead of like a midterm and a final, you'll have like a mid-year group project and then a final group project. So it's a lot of, like we said before, you're collaborating probably in a group of like four, maybe five people. It gives you a good opportunity to get to know each other. So those are usually like the main two grades. You'll usually have almost every course has a participation grade, so you're encouraged to get involved and speak instead of just, turning your screen off and muting yourself and not getting involved. So every class, it's screen on, you're asking questions. And then there's usually some little odds and ends here and there, little assignments. They could be group or they could be individual. Might be like some case studies, some Harvard Business studies where you're doing a quick two-pager on those. Might have a couple of those throughout the year. So that would be my general take for like the general MBA classes. And then for the more finance specific classes for my concentration, they've been a little more um, what you would expect. So it's more midterm final exams. And then there is still group work though, so that's what I've like I alluded to with the financial policy class. You might have a group project where you're trying to analyze a company or something. So you are still getting group work. It's not just tests, but that would be my breakout of it.
Thanks. Anybody else?
I think Connor hit the nail on the head. It's kind of an all of the above situation, depending on the class. I mean, yeah, you're accounting. I think accounting, the the accounting prereq was the only class that I didn't have a group project for. So, you know, at least among the general MBA classes, of my elective classes, yeah, I think those are more project based, the Pythons and SQL classes. So, as opposed to test based, which again, like if you're doing some kind of coding, I think it's better to like be more hands on building something. So, Yeah, overall, I think the fact that the org group projects also helped me, like Connor said, like get to know others, kind of develop those relationships. You're meeting with your group mates however often, depending on the class, every week or maybe once every few weeks, something like that. So I haven't felt like it's interfered at all, having to do group projects and like time outside of class and that sort of thing. So that's been helpful. But yeah, I mean, overall, good mix.
Dennis, anything to add to that?
No, the only thing I'll add is the following. I know probably what you're thinking, Lebu, and maybe those who are watching the recording is like, oh, I don't, group. Oh my gosh, I got to coordinate that. It's such a headache. And I don't know if Connor and Dan have had a dissimilar experience from me, given that I've been in many of their groups, but I can speak having worked with them that everyone gets what they need to get done, right? And everyone knows, hey, I got my day job. We've also got class, and whether it's creating a text thread and or commenting kind of asynchronously in your Google Doc. I found it to be really easy to work with people, really seamless. So if that's something that you're thinking, hearing group projects, it's way different than what you'd have experienced in undergrad.
Great. I'm going to ask two more questions. So for anybody that's here live, if you have any questions, you're welcome to type them. Now would be the time to type them into the chat. If not, not a big deal. So my first question is, and you may need to think about this for a second, is for a prospective student, like you guys were in those shoes a little bit while ago, is there something that surprised you about the program that like now that you're looking back on it, it's like, oh, I didn't really know that as a prospective student, but it would have been really helpful for me to know at that point.
I have one, but I'd say if I can answer it this way, Kevin, I don't know if it's as much about the program, but about the entire experience. And I think Connor kind of hit on this earlier. I'm a little bit surprised at how connected I feel to like the broader university ecosystem. So, I think sometimes when you embark upon the MBA journey, you think you're kind of off doing your own thing, but like you're really, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, you get the student ID, you want to get the football tickets, you could do that. You want to hit the driving range, you could do that. The program I think is super seamless in that you don't feel like you're just off on an island, doing your own thing in MBA land. Like you feel like you're a part of the school. And yeah, it's been cool. I mean, there's been opportunities to kind of interact with undergrads. So yeah, I mean, it's you definitely feel like the ability to like, why the Lehigh name means something post grad.
Any surprises from the two of you?
I think how available professors really are for you. I know that in undergrad, you have your designated office hours, and at least in my undergrad experience, you have these couple hour window a week, and if you can make it, great, and if not, like, all right, who knows? But especially being like working professionals, I was really surprised at how much professors like really took the time to like work around your schedule for office hours. They had their designated office hours that they would post on the syllabus or whatnot, but if those didn't work out, like I knew I could always just send an email, and be like, "Hey, can we meet? Like, here's some times that work for me. Is there any of these times that work for you?" And like pretty much every time it's been, yeah, like we'll find a time and connect and work through an issue that I might be having. But on top of that, also just like the some of the connections made with other folks in the cohort. I think like going in, I just kind of wasn't expecting that, and I think like this is a positive, unexpected. It's been really fun, like having, the same people in the same classes and working with like the same people in the same groups, and it just kind of makes you feel a lot more comfortable working with them in group two, group three, group four, like whatever number group. Like, Alana is my wife is not the person I've worked with the most, which has actually been a good thing too, honestly. So we've been able to have like our separate experiences for the most part,
Yeah.
which she'll be happy about too. But so I it's like what's that saying? It's like the fun is like all the friends you make along the way. But like something I just wasn't expecting for sure going into this.
Connor, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know if I have too much else besides what Dennis and Dan said. I mean, there's nothing where I'm like, darn, I really wish I knew that ahead of time,
Yeah.
whether positively or negatively. I mean, everything's, like I said, part of the reason I came here was for the name recognition, and it pretty much lived up to the expectations. I will say what Dennis was saying. I was definitely surprised the connectedness you feel for sure. Like I said, with like the compelling speakers theory series and everything, being able to come up on campus, use my ID, kind of feel like you're a part of the program and everything was pretty cool. And I guess just the resources available to you
Mhm.
too. Like if you don't have tuition reimbursement, for example, available to you. They've been pretty generous too with like scholarship opportunities. So that was a pretty pleasant surprise. We have the ability to apply every year, and you might be able to get to knock some money down, which helps out. So those would probably be the main things.
Good. And we did get a question. So, Connor, I'm going to come right back to you and I'll check with each of
Sure.
you. The question that came in was, and I'm happy to handle it at the end too, from a logistics standpoint. But when you applied to the program, Connor, you were finance, I believe you said. Did you know you were doing finance right from the beginning, or did you start as like a general business student and switch to
Mhm.
finance? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so like I said when I came in, I was trying to brush up on my financial skills, so I kind of came in with the expectation of I want to concentrate in finance. Um, so I came in with Marissa from the beginning, and we kind of built my schedule that way, and it's worked out well. Um, from my understanding, though, I believe too, if you went in, you can decide along the way too. If you're like, I want to do this, maybe I don't, or you just start general and then decide as you go. So there is some flexibility along the way.
Correct. Dan, how about you? Did you come in as one and switch, or you kind of stuck with the same thing?
I wanted to be general. I didn't want a concentration actually, because I wanted to, essentially take whatever class seemed interesting to me, and like that's what I was able to do. So, really happy that I got to just see what was interesting in the class schedule and be like, oh, I want to take this, so I'm going to take it.
And Dennis, how about you? Your path?
Similar to Dan, however, I think I'm ending up with a concentration because of my preferences. So I came in as general, and I think because I prefer kind of the venture series and kind of some of the thinking outside the box, I've found my way into the corporate entrepreneurship concentration.
hmm Yeah, and logistically, like the way that it works is if somebody does decide to apply, they can select a concentration at that point. But as Connor had said, like you just kind of work with your advisor if you decide to switch that. And I always tell people too, like let's say you don't have a business analytics background, but you're interested in business analytics as a concentration. We're not evaluating somebody from the point of an application, like will they be successful in that concentration or another concentration? Because ultimately you can easily make that change. We typically just advise students, before you go down the path of a concentration, business analytics is a good example, right? Like if you take your first business analytics class and you're a general business, that can be a good validator to say like, okay, that's the path I want to do, or maybe I'm going to switch back to the general. There's another question that came in. So somebody here is an engineer by degree. I know you guys, I don't think we have any engineers here, but any questions that they should ask themselves versus Flex MBA, or if they should be doing maybe the MBA and a more technical like engineering degree. That might be hard for you guys to answer if you don't have engineering backgrounds. But any thoughts on kind of somebody with a technical background, maybe why they should or should not consider an MBA?
I mean, I graduated with my undergrad in statistics, so I know it's not engineering, but still, math heavy. You're not really going to be doing engineering math. You're not going to be doing calculus. You're not going to be doing any kind of probability theory in your MBA, which I was happy with. I'm done with those with undergrad. Um, what you are going to learn is how to like better apply those skills that you learned in undergrad in a way that like actually drives value for your company, not just short term but also long term. You might think about how you like might say market what you might be working on, how you kind of actually develop a product and not just like a technical product, but how you actually develop a both soft hard product, how it gets developed, some of the thought that strategy that might go into it, from a financial standpoint as well, like the P&L that might go into a product, things like that. So I think overall, from the applicable kind of lesson and what I wanted to get out of it, like still applies. I think it does help you expand from being a piece, a cog in the overall company to really understanding like how you fit in with finance, with HR, with your product teams, with your marketing teams, supply chain teams, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I can jump in too because the good thing is we have a lot of it's shocking we don't have engineers here because usually about a third of the Flex MBA program is engineers. So, the idea that combining, like Dan said, like a technical background with an MBA is we call it like a T-shaped professional, right? Somebody that can go deep in a particular quantitative or technical area, and then the top of the T is kind of the broad overview of business, which Dan kind of alluded to. One of the options that we have, there is I think we're talking about maybe a joint degree program that Lehigh offers between the College of Engineering and the College of Business. There's other options too. Like we have a number of students that have engineering backgrounds and they say, I'm kind of at that point in my career where I could go more down the engineering path, down the technical side, or I want to make that pivot and come over to the business, the org side of the house. So that's very common to see that. One of the unique things about our program is that if you are an engineer, and let's say you just decide to do the Flex MBA program, we do permit students to take up to 6 elective credits in one of the other colleges here. So we have a number of our engineers that say, okay, I don't maybe want to go down the whole joint degree path, which is going to cost more money. It's going to cost more time as well too. But maybe I do want to take 1 or 2 classes, like a engineering optimization class, or if you're mechanical engineering, something related to that. So there are kind of unique ways, depending on what each person's interest is, that we might be able to help with that. But there's tons, right, guys? I would think a lot of engineers in your class. It's a pretty common theme. I see heads shaking. The last question that I have for people is maybe just if you have any advice for incoming students, right? Like what it takes to be successful in kind of juggling work, family, and education, and maybe advice you guys would have liked to have coming into the program. Dan, can I call on you first?
I think reminders on your phone are your best friend. Your calendar also your best friend. I think like, not to kind of jump in and give advice right away, but like time management is very important. And it definitely is in the workplace too. Like you want to make sure you're getting your deliverables in on time and any work you need done on time too. No different there. So yes, like you are going to have to spend some time on group work, on studying, on case studies, any kind of reading, that sort of thing. Like yes, there is definitely non-zero time. And so reminders, setting up blocks for myself, taking time whether after coming home from work or on some, weekends. That's been really helpful. I think that said, um, outside of that, I think it's important to, as much as possible, try to really participate in some of those group projects. Like you never know some of the relationships that you might build. You never like at the end of the day, one of the big reasons for wanting to do an MBA is to help build your network as well. You never know how that's going to, kind of play out 5, 10, 20 years down the line. Um, not to intimidate with in terms of time management either. I don't think anything has been like not manageable or anything. I haven't felt like I have, had to completely give up, weekends and make these large sweeping sacrifices and like not have a life at all. Like that's definitely not been the case. Um, but at the end of the day, you kind of get out what you put in, and like if you're willing to put effort into like some of the relationships that you build, participating in class and getting to know some of your professors, I think you'll find that you get so much more out of it than you put in.
Great. Connor, any final thoughts or advice for incoming students?
Yeah, I think Dan kind of nailed it, but I'll try to add to it a little bit. I
Okay.
mean, the cliche things, time management obviously is big, and I think like you said at the end there, just what you put in is what you get out. I mean, if you want to skate by and do the bare minimum and just say you have an MBA, I'm sure you can do it. But your performance will reflect it and the knowledge you retain and the relationships you walk away with. So What you want to get out of it is what you'll make of it. So put in the work. You'll make some good relationships. Like Dan said, you never know. There's a lot of different people in these rooms. Somebody could be starting a company and then they're looking for their next CFO, or you never know the relationships you'll make. So that's important. Participate, get to know everybody, and yeah, just put the work in. I mean, it's not, you know, you don't lose your life. You still have free time. You can still balance other things like your home life and work and everything. It's not impossible. So I would just say put your best foot forward.
Thanks, Connor. Dennis, any final thoughts or advice to prospective students?
No, I'm probably one of the last people you want to take advice from, but I think Dan and Connor said it well. I guess the only thing I would add that you often forget, if, for those of us maybe who went to college quite some time ago and then maybe come back to it, is there's so many resources that Lehigh has. So like even the library and the learning technology systems and the fact that, hey, as a student, you also get subscribed to, an AI platform like Gemini. You don't know how many times in my day job where I'm looking for a publication and it's like a paid publication, it's behind a paywall, but I'm able to access it from many of the student subscriptions that we have. So I'd say the only thing in addition to what Dan and Connor said, I think they said it really well, but you have to remember too, there's so many resources to take advantage of, and just make sure you're tapping into that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I don't know if you guys have hit that point in the program yet, but one of the new additions that we're adding to the Flex MBA program is kind of a career component to it, right? We've always kind of done it informally as students have reached out, but as people are nearing kind of the end of the program, we're definitely offering a lot more enhanced career services now remotely to our students as well too. So I wasn't going to ask these guys like what's the next career step, obviously, but we do have that for prospective students. We see more and more of our online students saying, okay, look, as I'm nearing the end of this degree, let me test the waters a little bit and let me see what is potentially out there. So we call it NextU, our co-curriculum, which is a professional development co-curriculum available to all of our students. Anameta is the best, so thank you, Connor, for saying that. Anameta's oversees our coaching. She's our director of talent development. She's fantastic. So we have a very, I think, interesting and unique career co-curriculum. It's optional if students want to join into it. But it allows you to do a number of different career assessments, career coaching. We've added some new AI tools, which I think are super interesting. But there's also very much that one-on-one coaching to help students figure out like, how do I position myself within my own firm if I'm looking to advance within my firm, or how do I kind of maybe experience things outside of my firm? So that would also include being included in a resume book. We would add our online students and our full-time MBA students into a resume book that we share with a number of different advisory committees across the university. These are very talented people that are in these rooms, as well as with companies sometimes as well too. And we offer our Flex students the option of a blind resume as well too, if you just kind of wanted to test the waters, but maybe not fully put yourself out there. So that just got rolled out recently. So again, as Dennis and others have mentioned, like there are a lot of different resources. It's really just up to the individual, like at what level or where they want to take advantage of it. So guys, it's always good to see you. I always say the hardest part of my job is like I get to know you a little bit at admissions and then I have to kind of ship you off. But it's always really good to catch up with you all. I'm sure this was immensely helpful for those here live and that'll be watching it on recording. And again, for any prospective students that are watching this, you're always welcome to contact us at business@lehigh.edu. We can get you in touch with Maggie, our assistant director of MBA admissions, and always happy to have a one-on-one conversation just to kind of validate, is this the program potentially a right fit for you? So again, guys, thanks again for your time tonight. And for those that were here live, we appreciate you and look forward to hopefully engaging with you in the near future. I hope everybody has a good night. Take care.
Good.
Thank you.